Quantum Creators Exchange, where we are generating innovative realities. Our whole consensus reality is change. We must be diligent in focusing on the type of world we will create. We must get out of reactionary mode into creating solutions that are life-enhancing for ourselves, others, and this beautiful planet we inhabit. We came here for this purpose. We have been practicing, and now the curtain is drawn open, and it is time for all creators together.
Renowned energy healer and facilitator Jeffrey Wilson is with us for today's edition of Quantum Creators Exchange, Generating Innovative Realities. Currently, he practices a modality known as vibrational healing that is based on new discoveries regarding the body's subtle energies. This modality has proven successful in thousands of clinical cases and applies to every physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual issue. This technology works by removing energetic blockages in the body-mind energy field complex, which in turn eliminates the underlying causes of symptoms. Jeff has seen that what many term diseases are actually manifestations of energetic imbalances. He now lectures medical professionals and lay audiences, teaching them how vibrational healing dovetails with mind-body medicine and spiritual principles. Jeffrey lectures and presents workshops around the country. He has been heartened by reports from hundreds of former audience members whose lives and health have been transformed during his workshops. Books and papers by leading researchers of new science have also validated the concepts included in vibrational healing. Regardless of the origin of the problem, physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, quantum vibrational healing has produced results that clients consider miraculous. There are no negative side effects. Vibrational healing offers only benefits, including inner peace, joy, increased energy, and an overall feeling of well-being. In today's Quantum Creators Exchange event, we will be talking about realities. 7 billion people live within the Earth's matrix, and they hold potentially 7 billion realities. Jeffrey's focus is upon 3 kinds of realities in which people may reside. The first is consensus reality. The second is contrived reality. And the third and final type is appropriate reality, otherwise known as individuals' own perfect, proper, and appropriate reality. And now, let us turn to Jeffrey for this important consciousness hacking information. Jeffrey, welcome. Good to have you with us today. Please tell us about your work.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can hear me now? All right, good. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, so I'm going to start with a little bit of background. So my own personal story is how I got into this. Is for 23 years, I took 5 psychotropic drugs a day to cure me in quotes, of my depression, ADD, chronic fatigue syndrome, and bipolar disorder. And because of a fortuitous event with my father, I had to become his advocate within the medical system for 6 months. I began to seriously question medical doctors, pharmaceutical drugs, and a whole host of other things about this world. And several times throughout that experience, I had been told that my father would never make it out alive. And so what I did is I fought against my own paradigms. I had to react against my own belief structures. I had to question authority. That was the biggest one that I had to overcome with my father. and over my father's situation. And at the end of 6 months, my father, after being transferred to 3 different hospitals, several different major surgeries, he walked out of that experience alive and went on to live several more years after that. But the result of that experience is that I began to question my reality, and I began to question, is what I've been told, that I have depression, ADD, bipolar disorder, and chronic fatigue syndrome, is that true? And are these 5 psychotropic drugs that I've been taking every day of my life, is that the cure? Is that the answer? And so that's set me off on my own journey. And that took about 10 years. And so if somebody mentioned something to me like, hey, I tried this Reiki practitioner, I would go try Reiki. If somebody mentioned something to me, hey, I did this massage therapist and they were able to get memories out of the tissue of the body by massaging a certain way with intent, I went and tried that massage therapist. And I just did that. I just kept banging away at it, just kept driving, because there was something, a little small voice in the back of my head said, something's not right. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And so I got into a pattern where I would see a Reiki practitioner on a Monday, a hypnotherapist on a Tuesday, a homeopathic physician on a Wednesday, and there was one more in there I saw regularly too. I saw about 4 different practitioners every week, and I kept this pace up for a couple years. And the homeopathic physician was in the mix to help me get off the drugs. And so she weaned me off the drugs little by little by little. And eventually what happened was I got off of all psychotropic medicine. And then I found out that I had been sexually molested as a child by a neighbor. And that was the root of my depression. That was the root of my ADD. That was the root of a lot of my issues. And so anytime I would come up or I'd hear something about a new practitioner, I'd go try it. And so I have a lot of experience with alternative healing modalities. And I'm here to tell you that they all work and that they're all miraculous. And they're amazing. And the people I came across, they became friends, they became mentors, they became my teachers. And I learned a lot in the process. It was extremely expensive. Nobody would do it the way I did it. Nor would I expect you to. It's ridiculous what I had to go through, but that was a learning curve for me. And so because of my, all the time I had taken off to do my recovery, I got laid off from the job I was at. Now, if you think, I'm going to tell you a little story here about that, because if you think God doesn't have a sense of humor, he does, she does. It does, whatever your belief is. I was working at the time for the world's largest pharmaceutical distributor in the world. And I was doing computer work for them, building their corporate network infrastructures. So I'm a computer guy by nature. I'm very science-minded. My background is all technology. And so I got laid off. And I remember when they were giving me my package, my exit package, I'm sitting there going, I'm smiling ear to ear. And my boss is like, I could tell I was freaking him out, because he's wondering what the hell is going on here. Because I'm just smiling like crazy, because in the back of my head, that still small voice said, now's your chance to go write a book. And so I did. I took their money, the pharmaceutical industry's money, and took 6 months off and wrote a book. It's called Irrational Medicine. And that got published. And I toured the country and I was speaking about my experience. And I was thinking that I would help people do what I did, break free of depression, ADD, bipolar disorder, chronic fatigue, et cetera, using alternative healing methods. And, but it became apparent right away, again, nobody was going to do it the way I did it. It took too long. It cost too much money. It took a lot of tenacity and courage and so forth and drive. And when you're in that situation, it's hard to find those things. And I know why. I figured all that out, why that's so hard. But again, to make another really long story short, one day I'm sitting there and I said to the creator, I said, all right, if you want me to be of service to the world, if you want me to help others, I need you to show me a way to do what I did quicker, faster, smarter, cheaper, and more effective. And within 2 days, a good friend of mine who happens to be a clinical psychologist calls me up and said, hey, there's this guy coming into town. He's giving a presentation on vibrational medicine. Well, I knew right then that was the answer. The Creator had just answered my prayer. So I go and I sit in a 3-hour workshop with this good old boy from Kentucky, and his name is Fred Payne. And for 3 hours, he's telling me about, I have a body, a mind, a field, a complex. A body, mind, field complex is what he called it. We have physical, mental, and emotional portions of that body. He's telling me everything is energy. Energy is impressed upon matter. You are matter. And there are ways that things get stuck in your field. And there are parts of your field that can get broken, can get shattered, can get damaged. And then stuff can get lodged in that field. It doesn't clear out naturally the way it's supposed to. And then when that happens, that builds up and it suppresses you. And for 3 hours, I'm sitting there listening to this guy, never met him before. And he says, so he's talking about all these things. And I'm going, I'm not being taught anything, I'm remembering. And it was a really weird experience because everything he said, I go, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Oh my God, that makes sense. And so afterwards, one of his apprentices came up to me, and I didn't open my mouth the whole night. Okay. Well, but one of his apprentices came up to me and said, you have antidepressants in your field. Now, keep in mind, I had been off these drugs for, at that time, almost 6 months to about a year. I had not put a drug in my mouth. But she said, you have antidepressants in your field. It's full of them. So, and then that's important because everything you do has a vibration to it. And everything you put in your mouth, everything you consume, the media you attend to, the books you read, the lessons the podcasts you listen to, the news programs you watch, all have vibrations. And those vibrations can get stuck in the field. The first law of the universe is vibration. The first law of the universe is vibration. Everything vibrates. That's quantum physics. And you need to hold on to that one because that's the bottom base of the pyramid. All right, so she comes up to me. She says, you have antidepressants in your field. And I said, okay. Again, I was really tight-lipped. I didn't want anybody to know anything about me. And she said, you mind if I clear it? And I said, yeah, go right ahead. So she holds her hand up to my heart and just what they call blowing codes and frequencies. And she literally just put codes and frequencies from her field into mine. And that was it. I walked away. I didn't feel anything. It wasn't like I didn't see the light. God didn't come down and touch me or anything like that. It was just it just happened. So I left and wondering what I'm going to do with this information now and where do I go from here. And about 6 weeks later, I go to a chiropractor. I use chiropractors quite a lot. I have 3, like in particular. And so I go to one of my favorites and I'm laying on his table and he comes in and he touches me and bounces back. He jumps back 3 feet. And I said, what's wrong? And he said, oh my God, you are off-gassing antidepressants. And I immediately thought back to that apprentice who put those codes and frequencies into my field. And I went home, picked up the phone, signed up for every workshop that Fred had and made it through all the public workshops. And then eventually got applied and got accepted into his apprentice program. And, from there, the rest is history, as they say. I went into it for myself. I went into the apprentice program for myself because I figured if I still had antidepressants, I've done all this work, I've made all this progress, I'm no longer taking drugs, I no longer have the labels of depression, ADD, bipolar disorder, chronic fatigue syndrome. And so I figure, but there may be other things that I need to pay attention to. So I'm going to go a deep dive into this vibrational thing here and figure out what other issues I might have. And so that's kind of where that goes as far as my background with this. I went through all 9 levels of the training. It was some of the most miraculous days of my life was spent in the Smoky Mountains with some of the most amazing people that you'll ever come across. and we're sitting there just learning and absorbing this information. So what happened was I did it for myself. So about 6 years ago, I was doing some project management work for JP Morgan Chase, and I had been there 5 years, and they have a policy after every 5-year period, you have to take a 6-month sabbatical. And that sabbatical is in case you as an IT person have put something into one of their systems or coded something like, you've seen this in movies where for every deposit you take a fraction of a cent or something like that. That's possible, it's doable. But that's what they do in order to kind of weed those out. They figure in 6 months, if you had done something you weren't supposed to do, that they would find it, that it would come to the surface. And so everybody who's there 5 years has to take a 6-month sabbatical. So I come home and I talked to Beth and I said, hey, I'm off for 6 months. And she says, oh, what are you going to do? Well, I could have gone and gotten another job or, taken another project or something like that. I said, well, things are going pretty good. So I think I'm going to try this healing stuff. I'm just going to start doing this for people because I keep getting asked to do it and everything like that. And so I said, wow, in my wildest dreams, if I could get 10 clients, just 10 clients, I could pay my bills every month and I wouldn't ever have to go back to corporate America. So I started working, and I'd made it known that I was available, and people signed up, got a healing, and then they would go tell 10 people, and those 10 people would come and get results, and those 10 people would go tell 10 people, and on and on and on and on and on. And to make a long story short, there at the end of 6 months, Chase called me to come back. And at that time, I was doing about 40 sessions a week, and I had a waiting list. And because of what I was doing was legit and effective, and so effective, super effective. So I told him, I said, I think I'm done. I won't be back. And so I've never gone back to corporate America since, and I've just made this my profession, if you will. I did not set out to come into this work. I set out to do this work for myself. And I learned enough, paid attention enough that I was able to turn around and use it and help other people. So that's how I got here. All right. Now, what have I learned in those roughly 6 years I've been doing it? In that time frame, I've done over 10,000 one-on-one sessions, and I've done some workshops, and I've done some other stuff. But over 10,000 sessions, that's I didn't realize this until a few months ago. I was trying to do some work around mindset, and I realized, that it's a rule of thumb. When you get 10,000 of something, you've crossed over from being an apprentice into being a master. And so it was hard for me to give up that label and own that. But when I looked at the results and the things I've done and the people's lives I've touched, I decided it's time to own that. And so that's why, I'm teaching now and talking more and getting out from behind my desk more. So anyway, 6 years down the road, what that did, all those sessions gave me this insight. I began to notice patterns in people's issues. And so that's why I was able to speed up the process and do things faster and more effectively. So for example, self-sabotage. You're sitting on the phone, you're listening to them, and they say, I keep sabotaging myself. And so then I do some checking in the field, and there's the items. There's all these items that I have listed as self-sabotage. And so what you do then is you clear those, and then the problem goes away. And so that's what I noticed was these patterns. And so I was able to develop very effective healing protocols for most major issues that can affect a human being. And so I've got that down pat now. And so that makes everything much more effective and much more efficient. The other thing I noticed is that as humans, there's a pattern to our existence. You come into this world, for the most part, whole, perfect, and complete. You hold a little baby in your hands, And you look at that little soul in there, and you look into those eyes, and it's the most amazing experience you'll ever have if you're, if you're capable of having that experience. If you're not so full of shock and panic and trauma, you look into that soul, and it's amazing. And that's what you are. You're amazing. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. And that's what I want you to really grasp, if you don't hear anything else I say today, is you're not a human, you're a spiritual being having a human experience. But what this world wants you to forget is who you really are. This world wants you to not remember how powerful you really be. Okay? That's the key. That's the key to the kingdom here, is remembering who you really are. So what happens is you come into this world, and then this world impinges upon you, and things happen. You may, and unfortunately, like I did, I was sexually molested. What that does is it shatters the field. It shatters a part of the field called the central channel. And when there's a break in the central channel, you do not feel safe in this world, and you do not feel like you belong in this world. Okay, those are two of the precursors to depression and anxiety, is not feeling safe in this world and not feeling like you belong in this world. The central channel is absolutely crucial. It's because it's your connection to the Creator. And when that connection is severed in any way, shape, or form, we pay a price for it. That can also manifest eventually as abandonment. Then you feel abandoned. Now, you may not put those words on it. I call it, the protocol I have for that is cosmic abandonment, where if that central channel is shattered, you feel abandoned, like you've been left in this world all alone, like you've been dropped off at somebody's doorstep, and whoever was supposed to love you and take care of you the most just kind of left you to fend for yourself. And that sense of abandonment then can play out in your life. And if it's really serious, it can play out in your relationships and in your work relationships and everything about your life and your existence. You can feel like you're abandoned. And then you go around basically abandoning other people before they have a chance to abandon you. So what I'm trying to say here is that your energy field is so important, because it's your body mind field complex. It's your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual bodies, your chakras, meridians, your bodies of consciousness, your soul, your central channel, your life force. That when those things are not working, and when they're being impinged upon, and when they've been damaged, they impact your reality. They impact your world. They impact the way you see the world. It stops you, and certain things can happen inside of a field that actually stops you from being able to generate enough power to even move forward. Okay? And stops you from generating enough power to even be the creator that you came here to be. And that's very crucial. So anyway, let me get back to what I was talking about. You enter this world and then things happen. You get impinged upon, and maybe you're born into a family that doesn't nurture you the way you need to be nurtured, and you get beaten. My family of origin happened to have a strict Bible policy and a strict Bible belief, and also a belief in physical punishment. So I got it from multiple angles. And now in retrospect, when I look back at it, I realized that I walked into this world a little bit more conscious than the average person. I can remember sitting in my backyard having mastermind groups with guides, if you will, and having conversations with people on the other side. And I used to get chastised for that. And so eventually what I did is I learned to shut it down. I shut down my psychic ability. And that's the other thing. You're a spiritual being, and by that very nature, you have psychic ability. We all have psychic ability. And these things that happen in this field, the breaks that can occur in this field, can stop and stifle and shut down that psychic ability. You can also choose to shut it down. Like, I don't want to see ghosts. I don't want to see this. I don't want to hear that. That's okay too. But you choose it, and you can choose to shut it down. So anyway, life happens, and then other things going to happen to you. You go into a school system that's more about slave training than it is any kind of education. Teaching you do A, B, C, D. Don't think outside of the box. Don't think for yourself. Do it the way we tell you to do it. And then you go into a religious system that teaches you more about dogma than it does any kind of spirituality. And so you get this vision of what God is, of what creator is, this person on the cloud waiting to mark down everything that goes wrong in your life or everything you do bad, et cetera, et cetera. And that can induce guilt into a field. And then, as you grow up, you run into, you lose people in your life and they pass to the other side, and your view of reality impacts the way you process that energy. And, grief can impact you. It can hit you physically, mentally, and emotionally in a lot of different ways. So again, if your field is shattered, if you don't have that energy connected, if you've lost that connection to the creator, you don't have the power to move through these things in an efficient manner. And as you move, that energy is in your field and you're carrying it with you. It's like a sack over your shoulder. So let's say you lose somebody close to you, and you're in your belief system, the belief system that's been given to you. Okay, I want to make that very clear. Most people never question the beliefs that they have. They just take them for granted. And most of the beliefs that we all have is what's been given to us. And we take it on and we just assume that's the truth. Okay. So you move through life and you carry this sack, and then things get shoved in the sack, and more and more and more, that sack gets heavier and heavier. Meanwhile, you don't have all the energy from the creator that you need because your field is shattered or broken, because shock and panic and trauma are the most efficient and despicable ways to destroy an energy field. So being sexually molested is a terrible amount of shock, panic, and trauma, so much so that it breaks that central channel. Going through a bankruptcy, going through a divorce, going through anything that's terrible and terrifying can generate enough shock, panic, and trauma to break that central channel. And so you go through this world and things happen to you, and you get a break here and a break there and a disconnection there. And then that sack keeps filling up and filling up and filling up and filling up. And before you know it, you end up here in midlife or even later in life, and you feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, like you can't generate anything, you can't create, none of this stuff works. Why the hell am I even here? And it's because life has become a struggle, a serious, serious struggle. And I'm here to tell you, it's not supposed to be that way. It's not supposed to be that way. Your natural state, your natural way of being is happy, healthy, joyful, fearless, loving, and alive. Happy, healthy, joyful, fearless, loving, and alive. That is your natural state. And if you're not that, there's a reason for it. And that reason sits in your energy field. Quantum physics, energy field. Everything is a field. This cup is a field. This phone is a field. Now these two fields are interacting with each other. You could actually feel it if you were sensitive enough. I'm a field. You're a field. Your house is a field. The state is a field. The country is a field. The world is a field. It's quantum physics. It's field theory versus atomic theory. Okay. All right. So the ultimate goal, I believe, is that we come here and even though we get impinged upon, we have the ability to work our way out of it. And like I did. Now I did it the hard way. I did it by seeing a Reiki practitioner and a homeopathic physician and an acupuncturist, chiropractor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I did a lot of workshops. I did a lot of Tony Robbins, and it used to be Est. I forget what the name of it was. But anyway, I've done a lot of stuff, and I've done a lot of personal growth. And, but not until I began to go to practitioners, like I went to a Barbara Brennan practitioner who put my central channel back together. And that was the thing that really got everything moving. Everything else then became available to me once I had that central channel reconnected. And I'll never forget this woman. She was probably in her 80s, God bless her. And she laid me on a table and she worked on that central channel. The break is here between the first and second chakra. She worked on me for 2 hours. And when she stepped away from the table and said, okay, we're done. And she had to help me, and she had to get her assistant to come in and help me get up off the table, because for the first time I was connected to the earth. And it took me another hour of walking around her office and out into the parking lot before I could even get in the car and drive away. That's how impactful this was to me. So the energy field, that's where it all comes from. So that's, now I'm not saying it's the panacea that it fixes all problems, but it all starts there. If you don't have the power, you don't have the strength there, you're not going to be able to do much of anything else. So the goal, at least in my journey, was to transcend my suffering, right? And I call it the lifting of a worthwhile burden. And that burden, all that work I did for those 10 years of seeing all those practitioners and spending all that money, all that time and everything, was to get the burden of depression, ADD, bipolar disorder, and chronic fatigue syndrome off me. And then what that did, it lightened me up. It let me remember who I was. It let me get in touch with my personal power and my personal sovereignty. And then the training I got from Fred really ignited everything. And that ignited what I had long ago decided I was going to do, was to come here and be a healer. And when I say healer, I use that word loosely, because I don't heal anybody. You heal yourself. All I do is remind you of what your field needs to look like, and you and the creator work that out. So the ultimate goal is to transcend your own personal burden, if you will, and then regain your personal sovereignty, which is your self-actualization, your inner authority, your ultimate self-care. And that's an issue I want to talk about right now, because a lot of people believe self-care is not legit. They've been taught to sacrifice themselves. They've been taught to, hey, you got something, share it with somebody, give that away, or help this person. Well, I got news for you. You can't be of service to the world, which is an amazing thing to do and a great thing to do. But you cannot be of service to the world until you're taking care of yourself first. And so being selfish and providing self-care first is the most valuable thing you can do. And by that, I mean, you can't be so poor that you can help other people financially. All right. So take care of yourself financially first. You cannot be so sick that you can help other people from a health perspective. So you have to take care of your own health first. And it goes on and on and on. And so you cannot give away what you don't have. You cannot give away what you don't have. So if I want to give you oranges, I have to have oranges before I can give you an orange. If I want to give you money, I have to have money before I can give you money. Self-care comes first, right? So, and that's completely contrary to a lot of our teaching of our society, which basically is sacrifice yourself first. All right. Then the ultimate goal, I think, once you get your personal sovereignty back, is to lessen the suffering of this world, because we're all spiritual beings having a human experience. And so what I like in this world too is an amusement park. Let's say you're going on vacation, you choose to go to Disney World, and you go into Disney World, and then you go and you ride this ride and that ride and this ride and that ride, and you have a good time, and you pick out the pieces you want to experience and enjoy. So when you were on the other side in an energetic form, just pure energy, you were deciding, well, I'm going to go back to Earth. I'm going to have these parents. I'm going to be born on this date. I'm going to have experience A, B, C, D. You look at this amusement park of this Earth, and you pick what it is you want to experience. Well, I want to experience living in Columbus, Ohio. I want to experience meeting a beautiful woman later in the latter part of my life that lights my life up and makes my soul sing. Those are all things and choices that you get to make. And it's an amusement park. That's what this world is. And you're supposed to come here and enjoy it. Now, that doesn't mean you won't have setbacks or struggle. That's the human part of you. But when you keep in mind you're a spiritual being having a human experience, spiritual being having a human experience, you decide to come down to this amusement park and experience particular rides, particular experiences. This was all of your choice, okay? So, I ultimately believe that the ultimate antidote to this world as it is right now, this crap storm that we're going through on a regular basis, is the well-developed individual, the person who knows that they're a spiritual being having a human experience, the person who has a field that is intact and can generate power from that the person who can then generate and manifest whatever it is they need in the world, but that all comes from the energy field. If that field is shattered, if it's stuck with shock and panic and trauma, you will never be able to generate enough power to make any traction in this world. But that's what the world needs. The world needs people who are self-actualized, who have remembered who they are, who have their fields intact, who have access to the creator that they be. Okay, now Wayne Dyer, one of the most beautiful analogies I ever saw him give was he had an apple pie, he put it on the table, he cut a slice of the pie, scoops it out, puts it on a plate, takes the plate, shoves it across, and asks the person on the other side of the table, what do you have? Now, person would say, I have pie, I have dessert, I have a plate. Well, what do you have? And the answer he's looking for is, you have apple pie. Apple pie. You have a slice of that from which it came. And every one of us on this planet came from the creator of all that is. We are part of God consciousness, and we are God consciousness. We are that from which we came. All right. And when you remember that, miraculous things can occur. When you're covered up with abuse, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, when you've been beaten, when you've been downtrodden, when your field has been shattered, it's really hard to remember that you are that from which you came, part of the creator being. It's almost impossible to remember. You can hear it, it doesn't register, and it doesn't vibrate in the field, right? So we lose that. The shock, the panic, and the trauma that this world induces, that we're born into, shuts us down as the energetic beings that we really are. By restoring the field, you regain connection to that energetic being that you really are. And that's the way you change the world. That's it. It's as simple as that. That's the way you change the world. You get 7 billion people on this planet remembering who they are, and all of a sudden we become the most uncontrollable mob anybody can imagine. And everybody's walking around loving each other and creating, right? So that's the objective of this work, in my opinion. That's what I've noticed by doing 10,000 sessions. Now, at this point in time, I get a lot of questions. It's like, well, did I do it to myself? And that's a misnomer I want to say right from the beginning. One of the most disempowering belief structures I've ever seen is the New Age movement. And by New Age is nothing new. It is an old religion that's been reignited. And one of the most disempowering belief structures I've ever seen is, I create my reality. Okay. And so I had a client, I will never forget her. She calls me up, we're in a session, and she was telling me about an experience she had where she was driving down the freeway. Drunk driver comes across the median, over the green strip, and then comes up and hits her head on, wipes out her car, almost kills her. And for years, she carried the burden that she created that. And she wanted to know, what was it about her that created that drunk driver hitting her? And that's disempowering. And it's intended to be disempowering. Okay? I'm going to say it right now, there is another side to this coin. Yeah, we all want to be love and light. And yeah, we all want to be kumbaya. But at the end of the day, there's two factions here. There are two factions in this world. And so what I liken it to, let me go back to this story first. The two factions, I'll go back to that. So let me finish the story. So she asked me, she says, well, what is it about me that created that drunk driver? I looked at her timeline. That wasn't an experience. That was not an experience she was supposed to have. That was not something she had set up. That was not one of the experiences at Disney World she was going to go and ride on. Okay. That was not it. She happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that drunk driver had the responsibility for what they did. But she made the mistake of taking it on 100%. Now, sometimes you're in the wrong place. Sometimes shit happens. Okay. But it doesn't mean it's your fault. And you certainly shouldn't be penalized for it. What she needed to do, and she eventually did, was she took the lessons from it. She realized how powerful she really was, that she was able to heal herself, recover, get back on her feet, make her life even better than it was. So she made lemonade out of lemons. But she finally gave up the belief that she created that. She created that. There are just some things you're just in the wrong place, and that's okay. You can recover. You can bounce back from it. But you do not create every bad thing that happens to you. You do not create every bad thing that happens in this world. It just doesn't happen. You create your reaction to it. You create your response to it, but you do not create the event. All right. Sometimes you're just in the park and bad things go awry. Right. So let's talk about the two factions that are here. So there is, I hope that some of you have heard of the term, it's a crystal child. Oh golly. Star seeds, crystal child. What's the other one? Indigo kids. Okay, so, and those are people that I would imagine almost everybody on this call is at least an indigo or a crystal, or you wouldn't even be attracted to this conversation. They come into this world with a little bit more wisdom, a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more understanding of this world. They're born a little bit more awake than the average person. So what I liken it to, when I was a child, we lived on 435 Queens Avenue in Dayton, Ohio. And it was right across the street from Gettysburg Elementary School. And I would go out, sun would come up, I'd be out the door in the summertime, and I'd go and play up and down the block with all my friends. We all knew each other. We all knew each other's parents. We all knew each other's brothers, sisters, et cetera, et cetera. And we'd take turns playing at each other's houses. And then eventually what would happen is we'd get bored as the summer progressed, and we'd say, okay, let's play kickball today. So the word would go out around the neighborhood, we're going to play kickball at 2 o'clock. So we would all meet across the street, go behind the school at Gettysburg, pick a ball diamond, and we would split up teams. And we'd have a home team and a visitor team. And then for the next couple hours, we would proceed to play the biggest, baddest kickball game you've ever seen for bragging rights. Hey, we beat you. Hey, we did this, that kind of stuff. And then the game's over. And then we would cross back across the street, go back to our individual homes, and go back to our families. And that's very similar to what this world is. This is a big intergalactic kickball game. And when we're all on the other side, we all know each other, and we all love each other, and we care about each other, and we are part of the Creator. But we get bored. We're eternal beings. How else do eternal beings while away eternity than to set up theater of experiences where they can go and have fun and experience what it is to be in a human body and all these other things. So there's a bunch of us that have crossed the street. We've come into these human bodies, and we've picked the home team. I'm going to say that I'm just going to use that for example purposes. There's another group of people who have come back in, they pick bodies, and they're the visitor team. And we're playing a big game of kickball in this world. And the kickball game is to move this world. The objective of this game in this world at this time is to move the world from lack and struggle back to love and light. Back to love and light. Back to where we all know who we are, back to our own personal sovereignty, back to who we came here to be and create what we came here to create. Now, there's another team out here, and some people are going to find this really disconcerting, but there is another team out here that's playing against us. And we're playing for bragging rights. We're also playing for the basic state of this world, but at the end of the day, we're playing for bragging rights. So we got one team playing for love and light. We got one team to maintain lack and struggle. And those people who maintain lack and struggle do crazy things, like get drunk, cross the median, hit you head on. Okay, so just be aware of that. So we're at the end of the day, though. At the end of the day, when we all find a way out of here, when we all go back to the other side, we go back to how we are, love and light. And we all sit around a big conference room table in the sky and talk about your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother. We all know each other. And then we determine what we're going to do next. That's the way we while away eternity. Okay, so that's the background. And that I just rambled on. Any questions before I get started into reality?
No, you can keep going.
Wow, you are an easy crowd. Okay. So here's another thing I've discovered is, and this is working with some of my clients, is when they're dealing with the world, when they're looking at their existence, their reality is impacted by several things. Your reality, first and foremost, is directly determined by your level of consciousness. Now, this goes back to a work called Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. And in the book, Hawkins puts forth the premise that everything is directly related to your level of consciousness. And he has a scale of consciousness. And in that scale, it's 0 to 1,000. 0 is where you find the energy of fear, shame, and guilt. 200 is the level of courage. 500 is love. 600 is peace. 700 is enlightenment. And 1,000 is where you will find people like Christ or Buddha or Krishna. So 700 to 1,000 is this kind of like enlightenment land, where you know who you are, you know how the dots connect, you don't get too upset about things. Doesn't mean you walk on water, doesn't mean you're perfect. I know a lot of people in this world of 700 and above. There's more than you would imagine. There's many more than you would imagine. That's the light team. That's the home team I'm talking about. People who find me, people who come and work with me, are those indigos, those crystals, those starseed children. They're the ones that came in with a higher level of consciousness and knowing, but can't quite put their finger on what went wrong or what's happening, or they know they need help, but they don't know what they need, et cetera, et cetera. And people who find me are those people who are trying to get back to that level of consciousness, that higher level of consciousness that they came in at, so that they can make that contribution or make their contribution to the world. In other words, make the suffering in this world less. That's really what we're after, is make the world suffer less. Worlds, don't get me wrong, this world can be a struggle. You have to struggle. You go into a gymnasium and you lift weights, or you run, or whatever you choose to do as exercise. You struggle, and then you get the benefit of it. So this world can be a struggle, but at no time should it be a suffering. At no time should it be a suffering. Remember, your natural state is happy, healthy, joyful, fearless, loving, and alive. Happy, healthy, joyful, fearless, loving, and alive. You didn't hear me say suffering in there. Suffering is not in your wheelhouse. It's not how you're engineered. Okay, consciousness. So one of the things I found by working with Fred's work and studying my manuals over and over and over again is a thing called contrived reality. And what I have noticed in reality, in addition to that level of consciousness, there's a view that we have of reality. And the way we have it is, or the way it breaks down is, I found 3 pieces or 3 components. One is consensus reality, okay? And so this is your view of the world. And this is things we all agree on. There are 7 billion people in this world, roughly, and there are 7 billion 100% unique experiences. Nobody else does what you do, contributes like you can contribute, creates the way you create, thinks the way you think. Despite all the things we think we have in common, you are the most unique individual that has ever existed, because you're that spiritual being combined with the human experience. So 7 billion realities. And of these realities, inside of that is a consensus reality. That's what we can all agree on. Gravity works. You got to put gasoline in your car for it to go. You got to go to the grocery store, you go to the doctor, you get your education, you get married, you have 2.5 kids, live in a suburb, whatever it is for your consensus reality. But it's the things we agree on. And it's the things that are common to all of us. We need air, we need water, et cetera, et cetera. Then there's what I call a contrived reality. And I found this in people's fields where it's contrived, where there's only a portion of the potential is available to you. It's locked down. It's stuck. Remember what I said, the number one rule in this universe is vibration, vibration. And so you can have many, many, many different vibrations, many different potentials. And if you're locked in a contrived reality, you're locked. And you can see up here, oh, look up there, there's perfect health. There's, oh my gosh, there's a house on the hill with a white picket fence, but you're locked. You're in that contrived reality. And sometimes you can make a few steps forward. You'll take 10 steps forward, but you'll take 10 or 11 back. And this is true of people with addiction, for sure. They're stuck in a contrived reality that they're addicted. The reason they're addicted is because they have shock, panic, and trauma stuck in their field, and they're using whatever they're addicted to as a self-medicating, okay? That's a locked vibration. So it's consensus reality, contrived reality. And then the third piece I found is it's called your own perfect, proper, and appropriate reality. It's the reality that you had designed, the reality that you were going to participate in when you were on the other side deciding you were going to come back into this world. When you were on the other side deciding, I'm going to have this kind of body, this kind of hair, this kind of relationship, I'll have this experience, this experience, this experience. That's part of your own perfect, proper, and appropriate reality. And people a lot of times get bumped off of that. They don't make it to their own perfect, proper, and appropriate reality because of the field is shattered, because of the shock and the panic and the trauma and all the stuff that they got stuck in that bag over their shoulder. They aren't able to generate enough power to ever make it to their own perfect, proper, and appropriate reality. Vibration, that vibration is locked in, okay? So, let's see what else I want to say about that. I think that's it. I'm ready for questions now if anybody wants to talk.
Yes, we have Emma Stowe that is going to go first.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, hi Jeffrey. Thank
Hey,
you
Emma.
so much. Hi, it's great to meet you, and I've loved what you've said so far. It just so deeply resonates with me. And I can start my video. Hang on, I'll just start my video. Hi.
Hey.
Yeah, so thank you so much, firstly, for this extraordinary life experience and journey that's got you to this point of such substantial service and contribution. So I really honor this work, because that's a deep, deep service. And everything you said, yeah, it really resonates. I mean, I've got so many questions firing up, but I'll just keep it brief to give other people a chance. But I think the first question I have about healing is, when you spoke about your journey and what you went through to heal initially, and that your initial question to the Creator was, you know, how can I speed this up so other people don't have to go through this? And I guess my question is about how much can you actually do that, and what an individual really has to go through. Yeah, I just wondered if you talked about that, because that's just one thing to me. I was thinking,
Yeah.
you know, having worked as a healer, as you know, doing healing as well, I'm thinking, yeah, if you could talk a bit about, can we as healers really speed it up? And just, yeah, if you could talk about the individual's part in that, and what they need to go in the healer's role in that, if that's clear.
Yeah. Oh, that's a fantastic question. So keep in mind, I'm going to answer everything from my modality's perspective. Okay. So remember I mentioned the Barbara Brennan practitioner I went to, and how it took her 2 hours to knit my central channel back together. And then it took me another hour to adjust to that. That one piece of work gets done in what I call a first session that I do, which can take less than an hour. I took basically all the teachings from everybody I went to, everything I understood about the field, the anatomy of the energy field. I put it into what I call round one. Round one is 2.5 pages, couple hundred line items of clearings that addresses everything I went through. So basically I did it. I took what took me 10 years, I do in 1 hour now for a client. And that's by using vibrational codes and frequencies to basically have the creator do all that work and knit it all back together. So it's very, 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 very doable. When I first started working on clients, I got too aggressive and I tried to do too much too fast, and I learned to pace myself. So that's why I broke it into round one. Round one is like, it takes an hour, and then they go off and all that work gets done and they heal themselves. And then they come back to me in a week, and then we do round two. And round two is about getting energy flowing. And then they go off for a week. And then round three, they come back, and then we deal with a major issue, whether it's shock or panic or trauma or molestation or emotional abuse or PTSD or whatever it is, whatever their big thing is that's lodged in that field, that sack over their shoulder. So I've just learned that that's the right pace and the right timing for somebody. So basically, roughly in 3 weeks, I can get somebody back on their feet to the point where they're able to be sovereign again. And that's simply by using the creator to do the work in conjunction with the individual themselves. Now, their responsibility is show up, to want the healing. They have to have the intention that I'm serious about this, and people do. I mean, by the time you get on the phone with me, people have tried thousands of other modalities, and they all work. They all work. They're all amazing, but they don't hold. So like you go to a chiropractor, and you get adjusted, and you feel good for a couple of days, and then you start feeling bad again. Or you go to an acupuncturist and you feel great for a few days or weeks, but then that doesn't hold. And the reason it doesn't hold is the field is shattered. So by putting that field back together, everything holds now, and then they can gain that power and gain function as they move forward in their life. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, completely. Are you saying that reconnecting their field actually gives them the responsibility they need to really own that journey of healing? Because that's one of the main problems, isn't it? I mean, I'm just wondering if you ever screen for that kind of level of responsibility when the clients come to you, or whether that actual connection actually facilitates them to finally understand and own that responsibility to step up to the next stage.
Yeah.
Because there is tremendous courage involved in healing, isn't it? I mean,
right.
Even with a healer of your caliber, they still have to go through that themselves, right?
Right. No, that's beautiful. It's when you put the field back together, they begin to remember who they are. And when they remember who they are, it's like, I don't care, I'm going through this. I have never had anybody say to me, I can't take this anymore. I got to stop. It's more like I've had the reverse, where they say, can we pick it up? Can we go faster? And so at that first session, when that field gets back together and you get reconnected to the creator, the central channels reconnected, the soul's back in the field, all the piece parts that have been missing most of your life probably, they take off like a rocket. Now, this is not easy. It's not struggle. It's not suffering, but there's some struggle when you clear, because in that first session, when I do that clearing work, what I tell them, this is the way it's going to go. For today, tomorrow, you're going to have really good days because you've got energy in your field that's never been there before. And it's palatable to most people. Then I said, next 2 days after that, you're going to be in trouble. I mean, there's going to be some issues coming up. You're going to have memories come up you've never had before, or memories that you haven't had for a long time. You're going to feel the energy one last time as it leaves the field, because that's what it's doing. It's transmuting out of the field and leaving us alone. Finally, you're not experiencing it again. You're releasing it. And so and that's the way we start the next session. Is we come back into session, and I say, okay, how was your week? And they'll say, oh my God, you were right. Or most of them will say, it was better or worse than you said. I give them an average. but 2 good days, 2 bad days, the good days return, and it's time to do some more work. That's enough where they get a taste and they begin to remember who they are, and they begin to feel the creator, and they go, yeah, I want more of this. And they don't give up. I've never had anybody walk away until they reach their level of consciousness. So it's that responsibility is innate, and all they got to do is be reminded of it. And first of all, just for them to find me in the first place, they've taken some level of responsibility, because I don't advertise. You won't see me in the yellow pages. I'm not on Facebook or anything like that yet. Well, we have a fan page, but I don't advertise. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jeffrey.
You're welcome.
Thank
Who
you,
else?
Emma. Thank you. We're going to go to Judy now.
I have a couple of questions, including some from David, who's having technical difficulties. In their everyday lives, how can people move themselves towards their appropriate reality? In other words, are there certain behaviors or practices that people who want to do that should seek out or avoid?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know about the practices. I think meditation or mindfulness, paying attention to what you're feeling, paying attention to what's coming up, asking yourself questions, taking advantage of that connection to the creator. Now, having said that, like, part of my work is clearing the contrived realities, right? And putting you more, transitioning you more into your perfect, proper, and appropriate reality. Now, how people do it on their own, I don't have very good advice for that, because that's not my world right now. That's not the world I function in. So my guess, educated guess, would be get into nature. Okay, nature is your friend. Nature is your absolute best friend. Even when we're doing heavy clearing work with a person, I tell people, when you're feeling down, when you're feeling lonely, when you're feeling these memories come up, you're feeling trauma come up, and it's being released, get into nature. You know, people make fun of hugging a tree. Go hug a darn tree. You know, that'll ground the energy into the earth. So I don't know a non-vibrational way to get there. And that's the problem, right? Because if we did it, we would all do it. We'd all remember who we are. We'd all pop into a perfect, proper, and proper reality, and we would no longer be controlled.
Okay, thank you. A possibly related one question: might you have suggestions for people who want to raise their children to live and thrive in their own perfect, proper, and appropriate reality?
Yeah, let them make decisions. Don't be afraid to let your kids make a decision. You know, I watch my grandchildren. I've got two of the most precious little individuals I've ever met. And they know their play, they want to play. It's like natural versus normal. Okay. So natural versus normal. If you, normal, what's a normal human being like? They're uptight, wound. They're stressed out beyond belief, addicted to all kinds of things. Their cell phone, their this, that, and the other thing. Okay, that's normal. Do you really want to be normal? Versus natural. Natural is playful, happy, healthy, joyful, fearless, loving, and alive. Okay, my grandkids are happy, healthy, joyful, fearless, loving, and alive. And so I think physical, like smacking a kid, may be necessary every now and then, but physical abuse is never a good thing. Okay, that takes the spirit out of us. Letting them learn, letting them play. A popular term right now is called unschooling. Rather than make them sit there for 6 hours or 8 hours and study these books, let them pick what they want to study. Let them pick what they want to pay attention to in this world. And they'll be quite naturally drawn to those things that nurture their soul, that they came here to do. You know? So yeah, just let them be kids. My God, don't put them in school at 1 or 2 or 3. Let them, schools starts early enough.
Let them go.
Yeah, Judy, you bring up a great question, but like the bottom line is, and I'm going to be the first to admit this, I don't have all the answers. I'm not sitting here analyzing stuff from different angles and what can be done and what can, this kind of stuff. What I care about is getting your field put back together and then let you figure out your own answers. I'm doing triage. Now, what you're really asking is, how could I work myself out of a job? And I would love to. So maybe that's a project we work on someday where we figure out how to handle these indigos, crystals, and star seeds that are coming in so that they never get shattered or broken or separated at any time, so that they grow up quite naturally, these spiritual beings. Right now, the world is not set up for that. It's just not set up for that. So.
Well, actually, I just want to say, that's one of my favorite definitions of a good teacher, is they put themselves out of a job.
I would love to quit doing what I'm doing. That would mean we have an army of people out here raising the consciousness of the planet.
Yeah, it would. It'll get there. I have 2 questions from David, too. This one may make you chuckle. Can people laugh their way into their appropriate reality?
I think they can. I think that is a good technique, a great technique. One of my mentors, his name is Jim Quinn. He did a laughing meditation. He would have us all stand around a circle, and we would literally stand there and laugh for 5 minutes. You need to try it, because at the end of that, you feel energized and focused. Yeah. The other one is dance. Just putting on, I like Bruno Mars, Uptown Funk. Put that on and dance around for a while. I think you can tap into your own perfect, proper, and appropriate reality by dancing.
Uptown Funk, did you say?
Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars. Yeah.
Okay. And then David's second question is, once they're there, how can people keep themselves in their own perfect, proper, and appropriate reality?
Well, that's the other thing. I believe as adults, once you get restored, once you get all this energy back online, once you've got all these reconnections done, is that you begin to understand that your energy field is your absolute most precious resource. And you will stop doing and or stop allowing other things to be done to you that damage that energy field. I really firmly do believe that. I have what I call tune-ups, where people come in 6 months, a year. I've got some people just come back. I had one about a week ago who I'd worked on 6 years ago when I first started, came in for a tune-up. She's perfect. She's marvelous. She's in a great space. She has no problem. It just naturally, your field, if your field is intact, you have a shock or a panic or a trauma, it processes, it comes in, and then you're done with it. Okay. When your field is shattered, you have a shock, panic, or trauma, it comes in, you don't process it. You feel it, you put it in that sack, you carry it around with you, but you can't let it go. All right. And so this woman served as a great reminder for me. I literally worked on her 6 years ago, and she's gone through a lot. Her life has changed. She lost her mother. She sold her house, moved, all kinds of major upheavals. And she's loving life, absolutely loving life. She just came in for a tune-up. That's all you got to do, So I don't think we're supposed to have maintenance.
The tune-ups, you mean?
Well, yeah, but that's just like the latest clearings that we've come up with. But I mean, like, if your field is intact, I look at my grandkids, and if they can make it, and they will make it as long as Grandpa's here. Mm-hmm. Ain't nothing going to touch my grandkids. But as they grow up, they will they'll know quite naturally what to do. Life will unfold for them in a happy, healthy, joyful, fearless, loving, and alive way. Again, they're going to have struggle. They will have struggle. We all have struggle. That's the way we grow. But they won't have suffering. Okay. And so if we can get this world to a point where all the damage that gets done to people, human beings, is ceased. It stops, it comes to an end. We already know what to do. We already know what to do. So my goal is to, get 1 million people through my process, get those 1 million people back into the world. And now you got 1 million people changing the consciousness of the planet by being who they came here to be. And I also think, and remember, law of vibration, that's the first law. I also think that just if you don't have some serious issues, like in my case, I had really serious issues. If you just have a few bumps in the road, a few scraps, a few scrapes, I think if you come in contact with a person who is happy, healthy, joyful, fearless, loving, and alive, your vibration will rise to meet them. Like if you're not damaged beyond repair, where you actually have to have major repair work, that your field can also match somebody else's vibration. And then, that gets passed on to the next person, next person, next person. We just got to stop this severe damage, And so that's, again, a theory.
I'm going to guess that the people you work with come up to more closely match your level of vibration and then carry that out into the world.
Yeah, by the time they're done, they do. Yes, that's right. Yeah. That's the objective. And my objective is to get them on their feet, pick them up, dust them off, put them on their feet, and out in the world. Just go. Don't sit here. Don't come to the Church of Jeff or anything like that. I'm not interested in that. I want you on your feet out in the world, doing what you came here to do and changing the world. Because I want a better world for my grandkids. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Judy, thank you. Thank you very much. We now have Heather. Heather, could you take yourself off of mute and video and connect your video, please?
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Heather.
So nice to see you, and thank you for connecting with us today. So you had mentioned religion and that kind of being a contrived reality, I think, with some people. How do you view archangels and ascended masters with respect to contrived reality of the matrix versus outside of the matrix?
Versus what? What was the last part?
Versus outside, like in ascended masters and archangels versus inside the matrix and outside the matrix.
Yeah. First of all, you got to be careful. All right, so let's do an experiment. Now, we all know Archangel Michael, right? And archangels exist for sure. But you have to ask yourself, when you're in the matrix, you have to be very cautious of which Archangel Michael you're dealing with. Now that usually blows people's minds. It's like, which one are you talking about? Everybody has a different concept. And this is how powerful you are as a creator. It's how powerful I am as a creator and so forth. Wherever two or more are gathered, right? That's an adage from the Bible. When you pray to something or somebody or interface with somebody or something like an archangel, it's important to go to the original, the one and only, because when somebody is doing it without it thinking about the process, they actually can create another one. Okay. Now let me show you. So I'm gonna douse. And this is a douse, right? This is yes. This is a no. Yes, no. Yes, no. So I use. There's multiple ways to douse. I could use a pendulum. That's one of the tools I use. But I'm going to ask, how many Archangel Michaels are there in the world at this time? More than 10, 20, 30, 40, 50? More than 100? More than 200, 300, 400, 500, 600? More than 1,000? More than 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,000? More than 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000, 70,000, 80,000, 100,000? 81, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 88, roughly 88,000 Archangel Michaels. Okay. So how do you know you're tapping into the right one? Now, if you get the right one, bless you, you're lucky. And you'll know it, you'll get results. But sometimes we'll get the wrong one, or we'll get the one that was manufactured and put there. That's how powerful you are. I could manufacture our Archangel Michael right now and throw it out into the ethers. and then have somebody tap into it. I could charge it with all kinds of negative stuff if I was, wanted to do that. But anything inside the matrix of this earth is subject to dark forces because it's these two sides of the equation, and they want to take away every asset you got. And that's one way of doing it, is by diluting the field, throwing multiples in there. You can do that for the violet flame. You can do it for anything. There's more than one. So be careful when you connect, that you connect to the original. You got to use the right verbiage. I don't do that though. So, and I understand it's a tool, and it can be a useful tool. But when you get to the point where you're connected to the creator of all that is, directly connected to the creator of all that is, you don't need the others. You don't need anything else. You don't need intervention. You don't need anything else to help you. All you do is you charge the creator to move energy into matter. And you set that through your intention, and to move energy into matter and make things happen. You don't need somebody else intervening for you. You're that powerful. Yeah.
Hey guys, real quickly, I know Emma, they turn off, she's in London, so they turn off her internet. So she does have another question. Can I put her in real quick before her internet goes down? And then I'll go back to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Emma?
Yeah, thanks so much for doing that. It's just, yeah, Jeffrey, what you said about us with when our field is intact, and then we're living then in this sovereign reality. And you were talking about that we don't create our reality in the New Age sense. But I just wondered if you could say something about when we feel our field is intact, and then we are in this kind of playground, as you spoke about it. Then could you talk about how, at that point, how are we manifesting within that from a place of an intact field? Because there's an element of us creating our reality from that place, and I'd love you just to say a few things about that. Thank you.
Beautiful. Wow. You've got some great questions. All of you've got great questions. My goodness. Wow. Okay. So with an intact field, here's the way it works. Scalar waves. We all live in dark space. Okay. Dark space is full of scalar waves. This is the vibration everybody refers to. If I walked up to a fish tank and I said to the fish, "How's the water today?" The fish would look at me and go, "What's water?" It's so much a part of their environment, they don't even know they exist in it. And that's same thing with us. We exist in vibration. So what happens is when we create our reality, you charge whatever you want with intent. And that comes out of a scalar wave out of the heart chakra and goes out to the universe. And then when it hits the universe goes, "Yeah, here it is. Whatever you want, you can have it." Now, here's where it breaks down. That scalar wave can get polluted. Okay, let me give you an example. That scalar wave is love. So if you are capable of love, self-love, loving others around you, etc., the more you're capable of self-love and generating love out of that scalar wave, the faster you can manifest your reality. But sometimes, this is the human part of us. Okay, so let me draw this. Let's make it clear, because I really want to drive this point home. This is human. And you have a birth and a death. This is spirit. This is you as spirit. And this I see that? No, yes. So this is the present moment, right here, right now. This is where you're the most powerful you'll ever be. If you're stuck here in the future, this is anxiety. because you're dreaming up all kinds of crap that can happen. If you're stuck here in the past, this is depression. This is revisiting, going over everything you've ever thought about. But when you're spirit, having a human experience, and you're right here in this moment, that's where you're the most powerful. That's where you're the most loving. That's where you're the kindest. That's where everything happens, is right here. I just want to point that out. Now, let me tell you what I was going to say. That scalar wave that I'm talking about, when it comes out of the heart chakra, can be stuck in what I call enmeshed emotions. So I had a client when he was 8 years old. His mother died very unexpectedly. And so on the one hand, he had this unconditional love for his mother. And on the other hand, he had fear, anger, and abandonment because his mother had left him unexpectedly. And he enmeshed love with fear, anger, and abandonment. This is the human part of us doing this. The spiritual part would never do that. But the human part of us enmeshes with love, with fear, anger, and abandonment. So how that impacted him. By the time he met me, he had never been in a relationship longer than 6 months because he grew up, started dating women. And then when he'd fall in love, boom, along would come the fear, anger, and abandonment because they were tied together. No relationship could withstand that combination of love and fear and anger and abandonment. And so he'd never been in a relationship longer than 6 months. We cleared enmeshed emotions. Last time I talked to him, he's now been in a relationship for 3 years. Same woman, just love. We're supposed to experience just love, but the human part of us has a way of enmeshing things together, mushing things together. So when that scalar wave gets generated, if you're sending out love and fear and anger and abandonment, you get a wonky universe. You get a wonky response. You get a wobble in your life, and it doesn't quite look or feel as good as you thought it would. So you got to clean that up. You got to put just love into that scalar wave and bounce that to the universe with your intention to create. And then what comes back is filled with love. Does that make sense?
Yes, thanks so much. That's an amazing answer. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
question.
That was good.
Thank you so much for letting me ask that again, Beth, and Heather. Thanks for letting me go in there.
There. Thanks, Emma. So just to clarify, then there is a Buddha and a Jesus and all of that. It's just, it's outside of there's one outside the matrix that's the real true Buddha and Jesus, and then there's all the contrived ones within the matrix.
Yeah, that's a great broad brush. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, let's talk about that for a minute, because Jesus said, and I keep this on my windowsill. It's John 14:12. It says, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do, shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father." Basically, I paraphrase that to say, what I do, you can do also and more. Jesus admitted, I'm part of the Creator, you're part of the Creator. So yeah, Jesus existed and so forth. If you've never read the book, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, you owe it to yourself. And if you don't like reading, go out to Audible and download a audio version of it. It's an hour and 20 minutes. It's amazing. It shows you the progression of how this world works. It really does. It's really a great picture. Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
very good.
Jeff, this is so awesome. This is so great connecting with you again. I've got just one quick question. In quantum physics, they talk about basically everything here being an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of confusing when you think of, okay, this reality or is this an illusion? So how does what you're teaching right now or talking about right now with contrived realities and all the three different realities, how does that fit in with the you know, the illusion part.
Okay, so what they're referring to is the quantum, the slip theory, where the observer impacts the results.
Okay.
And 1 minute the observer is expecting a wave to materialize on the other side of the barrier, and then another it's particles. And then thinking, just changing your thoughts will change the way those particles or waves show up. That's the illusion, right? Now, what I'm talking about is getting you so clean and clear, getting your field so clean and clear and pristine, like that enmeshed emotions is a great example. That's a perfect example now that you brought that up. If I'm sitting there and I'm throwing out the thought, the feeling of love and fear and anger and abandonment, I have a world of love and fear and anger and abandonment. See, my intention, my thought, the vibration in my own field impacts my world. That's the illusion. Now, another person, my neighbor, could have a great life. We're sitting in the same block, the same city, the same everything. You know, so that's the illusion. His world is different than mine. That's where I go back to your reality is consensus, contrived, and perfect, proper, and appropriate. Perfect, proper, and appropriate is you creating that illusion in one that serves you, not one that serves the powers that be, not one that serves, you know, the government or the dark side of the force or whatever. It's the one that serves you. So that's the good news. So really what you're talking about, that's the good news. The good news is that we do get to create it.
Awesome. Yeah. Perfect. Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything, any other questions from anybody that they would like to ask or add on? And Jeff, do you have anything else that you would like to say at this time?
No, I mean, I've yammered on long enough, I think. I do want to talk, maybe I do want to talk about this one piece though, and this is a little bit more illustrative and we need to put it in a pretty little diagram, but what it is this is your energy field, and whatever's in here, the combination of the realities that you have and so forth, that determines your thoughts determine your feelings determine your emotions determine your actions determine your results, and then that feeds back into your energy field, and it's a loop that keeps going. So if you work here in the first part of the energy field, then that can clean up your thoughts, which cleans up your feelings and your emotions and cleans up your actions, and then really cleans up your results, and then you get a different world, a different reality. Okay, so everything starts in your energy field. Your experience of this world starts in this energy field. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeff. Really appreciate this.